Have you ever looked in the mirror, your bob perfectly in place, the color still even, and yet something feels off? You can't quite put your finger on it. It's not the lines on your face, it's not age, but somehow your reflection feels heavier. Your face looks more tired, like gravity has gently pulled everything downward, without your permission. You're not imagining it. I've seen this happen to so many women over 60. The bob haircut. We love it. It's clean, classic, easy to manage. But over time, the very shape that once felt fresh can begin to weigh us down. Not because the bob is wrong, but because the way it's been cut no longer works with the way our faces evolve. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 5 of the most common bob cut mistakes that can instantly add years to your look. Mistakes that even your stylist may not have mentioned. More importantly, I'll show you how a few subtle changes can lift your features, soften your face, and bring back that light you've been missing. If you've ever left the salon feeling older instead of lighter, this might be exactly what you need. Mistake number 1, all the weight is in the front, none in the back. Have you ever wondered why your bob looks heavier around your cheeks and jawline, even though it's freshly cut? You might not notice it at first. You leave the salon thinking the length in front gives you a softer, more controlled look. Maybe it feels comforting to keep that weight around your face, like a curtain that hides things you don't want to draw attention to. But as days go by, you start to feel something's off. Your reflection looks rounder, your smile doesn't pop, and no matter how carefully you style it, your hair seems to drain energy from your face instead of bringing it out. This is one of the most common mistakes I see women over 60 make with a bob cut, and it's often done with the best intentions. The issue? Layering only in the back while leaving the front completely untouched. From a distance, it might look neat and well-shaped, but in reality, this imbalance creates a subtle but powerful visual weight that drags your entire look downward. Here's why. When the front of your bob is left heavy and flat, no layers, no movement, it acts like a frame that's too thick for the picture inside. The hair clings to the sides of your face, resting on your cheeks and jawline. And if your stylist has added layers in the back to give it volume, that lightweight rear section tends to push some of the hair forward. That means even more weight falls directly onto the lower half of your face. For women who are already noticing fuller cheeks, softened jawlines, or a little sagging under the chin, this makes those areas feel even more pronounced. And instead of softening your features, your haircut starts to magnify the very parts you'd rather minimize. It's especially problematic for women with fine or thinning hair, a texture that becomes increasingly common with age. Some stylists, fearing they'll remove too much density, avoid layering the front altogether. But here's the truth. Skipping face-framing layers doesn't preserve thickness. It just concentrates weight where it does the most visual damage. So how do we fix this? You don't need to sacrifice length or volume. What you need is controlled softness, the kind that enhances, not hides. Start with gentle face-framing layers that begin around the cheekbones and taper toward the chin. These subtle shapes bring attention back to your eyes, highlight your bone structure, and instantly lift your face. Next, ask for internal layering, a technique that removes bulk from the inside of your haircut rather than the surface. This keeps the silhouette full and healthy while allowing the hair to move more naturally. Think of it as lightening the load from within, so your style breathes instead of collapsing onto your features. And most importantly, make sure your stylist connects the front and back seamlessly. The transition should feel fluid, like the layers are talking to each other. When done right, the result is a bob that moves as one, frames your face with softness, and grows out beautifully. You don't need a drastic transformation. Sometimes it's just a few well-placed strands, cut at the right angle, falling in the right place, that change everything. Suddenly your cheekbones catch the light again, your eyes feel more open, and your smile feels like it belongs to the woman you still are inside. Because the right haircut doesn't just sit on your head, it lifts you too. Mistake 2, the one-length blunt bob, a style that boxes you in. What if the haircut that once made you feel polished and put together is now quietly draining the light from your face? For years, the one-length bob has been a go-to for women seeking a clean, elegant, and no-fuss look. It's tidy, it feels safe, it gives the impression of order. And let's be honest, there was a time when that mattered more than softness. But after 60, something subtle begins to shift. That once trusty cut, sharp, blunt, and uniform, starts to work against you. Instead of framing your features, it freezes them. You may notice your reflection looks more rigid, like your face is encased in a solid frame with no room to breathe. The crisp edges that once felt sleek now highlight everything you wish they wouldn't: heaviness in the lower face, softened jawlines, and tired eyes. The problem lies in the uniformity. A one-length bob, especially when cut blunt with no layers, behaves like a helmet. It sits on the head without movement. And when the hair no longer moves, the energy in your appearance begins to stall. There's no lift at the crown, no softness near the temples, no air around the cheeks. Everything feels boxed in. And for women with fine or thinning hair, something that becomes increasingly common post-menopause, the effect is even more noticeable. Blunt cut draws attention to the contrast between thick and thin areas. If your crown is losing volume or your temples are starting to recede, the solid line at the base makes those areas look even sparser. Yet despite all this, many stylists still recommend the blunt bob. Why? Because it's easy to cut. It requires little technical skill and fewer adjustments. It also tends to look full, at least at first glance, so it gives the illusion of density. But volume and density are not the same. And fullness at the ends without movement around the face often just leads to a look that's stagnant and heavy. So what can you do if you've been wearing a one-length bob and it no longer feels right, but you're not ready to give up on the style entirely? You don't have to. The secret lies in adding air, not abandoning the bob. One of the most effective solutions is internal layering, a method that removes excess bulk from the inside of the haircut, while preserving the classic shape on the outside. It keeps the silhouette of the bob intact, but allows the hair to move, flow, and soften naturally. This technique prevents that blocky, helmet-like appearance and brings breathability back to your hairstyle. Another simple yet powerful adjustment is beveling the ends. Instead of cutting the bottom of your hair completely straight, a gentle inward curve helps the hair hug the natural shape of your face. This alone can lift your features and restore softness without sacrificing structure. And finally, ask your stylist for soft, hidden layers near the cheekbones. These don't need to be dramatic. Just a few subtle pieces can make all the difference, lifting your mid-face, drawing attention to your eyes, and breaking up the heaviness at your jawline. It's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters most. Because after 60, the goal isn't to chase youth. It's to let your haircut evolve with you. The right bob still brings elegance, ease, and timeless beauty. It just needs space to move, and so do you. Let go of the solid frame. Choose softness. Choose flow, because the best haircut doesn't sit still. It breathes with you, lifts you, and reflects who you are becoming, not who you were. Mistake 3, the reverse bob, a cut that pulls you down instead of lifting you up. Remember when the reverse bob, short in the back, long in the front, felt like the boldest, most fashionable thing you could do with your hair? It was sharp. It was edgy. It said, "I'm in control." For a while, that dramatic slope from nape to chin felt empowering, like an instant facelift in the mirror. But here's the thing. Some styles belong to a moment in time, and the reverse bob, it might be time to let it stay in the early 2000s, where it first found its fame. Because after 60, what once felt daring and fresh can start to work against you in quiet, subtle ways. The reverse bob creates a shape that draws the eye downward, toward the chest, the shoulders, the neck. And while that may not have been a concern decades ago, it now means emphasizing areas where the skin may be loosening or the posture isn't as upright as it used to be. Instead of lifting the face, this cut pulls focus lower, creating a visual drop that can weigh down your entire silhouette. The neck looks shorter, the shoulders appear more rounded, and the beautiful openness we want around the face becomes overshadowed by length that no longer flatters. For many women with round or square face shapes, the imbalance becomes even more noticeable. That extended front line pulls the lower half of the face forward, making everything feel heavier, fuller, more closed off, and yet the reverse bob continues to tempt. Why? Because there's a belief that it elongates the face, and to some degree, yes, it can, but only temporarily. Once the hair starts to grow out, which it inevitably does, the whole cut begins to collapse. The angle becomes exaggerated, maintenance becomes a headache, and the style no longer gives what it once promised. So, what's the solution if you've loved this shape but feel like it's no longer loving you back? You don't need to give up on the idea of a forward angle. You just need to soften it. Instead of a steep reverse slope, ask your stylist for a gentle forward angle that mimics the line of your jaw, not a dramatic plunge past the chin. The goal is to let the hair graze, not pull. This way, the cut still offers structure, but in a way that supports your features, not drags them down. Begin the angle just behind the ear, not at the very back of the head. This small shift makes a big difference. It lets the cut flow naturally from the curve of your skull, instead of forcing a harsh line that disrupts the balance. And to truly lift the overall effect, add subtle crown layers. Nothing too visible or trendy, just enough to bring a hint of elevation to the top of your head. This gives the illusion of height and, more importantly, draws the eye upward again, where your smile, your eyes, your spirit live. And if you've ever felt like your haircut was holding your face down, you'll know the power of that lift. Because when the top feels lighter, everything feels lighter. It's not about looking younger, it's about looking like your features have room to breathe again. Sometimes, all it takes is a shift in the slope, and suddenly, your reflection feels more like you. Your haircut shouldn't anchor you to the past. It should help you move with grace, with lightness, with air. And when your crown is gently lifted, the gaze follows, and you feel it. Not just in your face, but in how you hold yourself. Mistake 4. The harsh angled bob, when hair starts shouting instead of whispering. Have you ever felt like your haircut is speaking louder than you intended, more statement than softness? Some styles are like architecture. They're designed to make a statement. Sharp lines, bold angles, deliberate. Precision. And at one point, the dramatically angled bob, short in the back, plunging long in the front, might have felt like the right kind of edge. It's geometric. It's sleek. It gives you that power look the moment you step into the salon chair. But not every face wants to hold up a structure that rigid, especially after 60, when what we crave most in our reflection isn't sharpness, it's lightness, movement, and kindness. The dramatic angle in this cut often goes too far, creating the illusion of two separate haircuts rather than one harmonious shape. The front pieces fall long, sometimes well past the chin, while the back is cropped short. It disconnects the flow of your natural face shape, drawing immediate attention to the lower third of your face, the jawline, the chin, the area under the cheeks. And for many women, these are exactly the areas we'd prefer to soften, not spotlight. What begins as an attempt to elongate ends up pulling your features down, creating a heaviness that doesn't just weigh on your hair, it reflects back onto how you feel in your skin. Then there's the maintenance. Haircuts with hard geometry don't age gracefully. The moment your hair starts to grow, the crisp angle collapses. The back loses its definition, the front becomes too long too fast, and suddenly you're left with a shape that feels lopsided and awkward. Unless you're visiting the salon every few weeks, which few of us have the time or desire to do, it becomes a style that demands more from you than it gives back. And here's the emotional layer beneath it. Many women choose this angled cut, hoping it'll bring edge, youth, or even a sense of control. It slims my face, they're told. It gives structure. But as we mature, the face needs less structure from the hair and more support. We don't need angles to define us. We need softness to enhance us. So, how do you adapt the idea of an angled bob without letting it overpower you? Start by dialing it back. Keep the front only slightly longer than the chin, just enough to give the illusion of lift without stretching the face downward. Instead of beginning the angle from the nape of your neck, have your stylist start the slope just behind the ear. This subtle shift follows the natural curve of your bone structure, allowing the haircut to move in harmony with your face, not against it. And then there's the magic touch, soft face-framing layers. These are the secret to quieting the harshness of a severe angle. They bring in movement, texture, and a little air around the cheekbones and eyes. They guide the gaze upward instead of letting it fall. They create whispers in your haircut, not shouts. A beautiful bob doesn't need to impress anyone with dramatic architecture. It doesn't need to carve out hard lines or hold a rigid pose. It just needs to move with you, quietly, gently, with ease. Because the most flattering styles aren't the loudest. They're the arcading ones that speak in the softest tone and still turn every head. Mistake 5, the high nape bob. When the back lifts too high, everything else falls out of place. Have you ever been told that raising the back of your haircut would make your neck look longer, only to walk out of the salon and feel oddly incomplete? It's a well-meaning idea and one many women over 60 hear all the time. Let's lift the nape, they say. It'll give your profile a cleaner line. It'll make you look taller, more elegant. But here's what often gets overlooked. Not every head shape, not every hair texture, and certainly not every mature neckline responds to that rule the same way. When the nape of your bob is cut too high, especially above the occipital bone, it creates a sharp disconnect between the back and the front of your hair. What you're left with is a silhouette that feels broken. The back looks almost hollow, with too much exposed scalp or short, stacked weight that feels abrupt. Meanwhile, the front still carries all the visual weight, falling heavily around the face, drawing the eyes downward. Instead of a soft, flowing shape that moves as one, your haircut starts to look like two separate ideas stitched together, neither one doing your natural features any favors. For women with finer hair or rounder head shapes, the effect becomes even more noticeable. A high nape bob often highlights areas you'd rather not emphasize, like a shorter neck, a less defined jawline, or any changes in posture that come with age. Ironically, instead of elongating your neck, this kind of cut can make it appear shorter and thicker, especially when paired with longer front sections that fall flat against the chest. So why does this mistake keep happening? Often, stylists are drawing from the youthful, stacked bob playbook, a style that works beautifully on younger women with dense hair, strong jawlines, and long, slender necks. But that formula doesn't always translate well for women over 60. What works on a mannequin or Instagram post doesn't always work in real life, with real texture and a lived-in life story written across the face and shoulders. But don't worry, you don't need to abandon the bob to avoid this pitfall. You just need a version that respects your natural shape. The solution starts by lowering the nape, not dramatically, just enough to let the back of your haircut sit gently along the curve of your neck. Instead of a sharp lift, you get a soft cradle, something that follows your natural lines instead of cutting against them. This small change instantly brings back fluidity, restoring the visual balance between the front and back of your hairstyle. Next, ask your stylist for graduated layers rather than harsh stacking. Graduation means that the hair builds shape slowly, with a delicate transition from shorter to longer lengths. It creates lift at the crown without abrupt angles, giving your hair body and volume without sharp corners or severity. This technique keeps your bob structured but soft, especially crucial if your hair is thinning or your scalp is more visible than it used to be. And perhaps most importantly, make sure your bob feels connected. The line from nape to front should feel like one continuous thought, not two conflicting statements. A well-crafted bob should hold your face like a gentle frame, not box it in from one side or leave it hanging from another. Because beauty after 60 isn't about how high we can go. It's about how gracefully everything comes together. And sometimes, lowering one line, just slightly, lets the whole picture rise. Hair is never just hair. 5 small mistakes, 5 gentle corrections, but each one touches something much bigger. The way your hair falls around your cheeks, how light dances across your cheekbones, and the quiet confidence you feel as you step out the door. A bob cut isn't outdated. It's not a thing of the past. When it's understood and tailored with care, it remains one of the most elegant, youthful, and low-maintenance hairstyles for women over 60. So if there's one thing you shift today, let it be this: the way you see your hair, not as something to fix or fight, but as something that can lift you, literally and emotionally, with the right shape, the right softness. If you've made any of these mistakes before, drop a 1 in the comments. If you haven't tried these fixes yet, comment 0. And if you'd love a future video on bob cuts for silver hair or the best fringe for a round face, tell me below. Subscribe, not to become someone else, but to remember, you always have the right to choose the most beautiful version of who you already are.